Warm greetings from the High 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans on this Friday, April 10th, 2020. Right now, our country is facing a pandemic, as most of you know. It is COVID-19, Corona, whichsoever, and it is gripping most of us. It is causing people to act out, feel some type of way, continue to go outside without masks and gloves on, acting as if they do not give a damn about themselves nor contracting this disease, nor passing it along. And now I bring you a crazy story out of Kansas pertaining to inmates who have decided to act a fool because of Corona. The said information is by NBC News. Inmates at Kansas prison take over cell block, damage property. There have been COVID-19 cases involving inmates at the prison, but a cause of the disturbance at Lansing Correctional Facility was not clear. And there is a video in this article. A group of inmates at a Kansas prison took over a cell block and began destroying property and set off fire extinguishers in a disturbance that stretched from Thursday afternoon to early Friday, a corrections department spokesman said. All inmates in the C cell house at the Lansing Correctional Facility were secured and accounted for by 1 a.m. Randy Bowman, Executive Director of Public Affairs for the Kansas Department of Corrections, said in an email. No injuries were reported, but details about how the incident ended were not immediately clear. Officials were expected to provide an update Friday. As many as 50 inmates were involved initially when the disturbance at the facility northwest of Kansas City began about 3 p.m., Bowman said. By evening, about 20 inmates were out of their cells, Bowman said in a phone interview Thursday evening. He cautioned then it was a very rough estimate. The inmates were just tearing up anything they could get their hands on in the unit, Bowman said at the time. The inmates in disturbance were confined to the cell house. A staff monitored the situation via video. All staff got out the unit safely, and a corrections response team was in place. If they don't escalate to fires or violence, we'll wait them out, Bowman said Thursday evening. The cause of the disturbance at the medium security housing unit was not clear, and an investigation would be done to determine what prompted it, Bowman said. COVID-19 cases have been diagnosed among inmates and staff at the prison since last week, and on Saturday, the entire facility was placed on restricted movement, he said. As of Thursday morning, 14 staff had tested positive and were at home, and 12 inmates had tested positive and have been placed in a medical isolation unit, Bowman said. One inmate who spoke by phone with NBC affiliate KSHB of Kansas City suggested that concerns over coronavirus, and masks were at least part of the reason for the unrest. But the inmate also said there was frustration about not being able to shower. They've broken everything that could be broken except the bars because you can't break the bars, the inmate in the cell house, who was not identified, told the station. The prison is in Lansing, northwest of Kansas City. The cell house has about 120 and 160 inmates, Bowman said. The prison overall has a capacity of 1,906 inmates, according to the department. Inmates got into some staff offices and threw around papers and other items and broke into containers to reach for fire extinguishers, which were discharged, Bowman said, describing it as lots of property damage. The restricted movement imposed after the COVID-19 cases did not mean that prisoners were confined to their cells, but they took meals in their housing units, and there were changes to recreation procedures to prevent the mixing of large groups, Bowman said. Wednesday night at a prison in Washington State, there was what was described by officials as a destructive disturbance involving more than 100 inmates that the state corrections department believes was sparked by COVID-19 cases there. The said information is by NBC News. So, at this facility, Kansas, one inmate believes that COVID-19 was the start of the malfunction because they're not being able to mingle as they were accustomed to. And one could argue, well, you're already locked down, you're in prison. What you fighting for? You know there's a virus. You know staff has been affected. And also you have inmates affected. So why not adhere to the rules until officials give the okay that you all can resume your recreational activities? Lord have mercy. I'm going to say this and I'm going to be brief. This virus is going to cause people to act out violently, verbally, and perhaps take their own lives. We have a lot of people who cannot cope well, and we know that when people cannot cope, they do foolish and heinous acts upon others and themselves. Most of you have probably heard about Mr. Trump wanting us to get back to work and our livelihoods and get the economy back up and running. But he does not advise statewide testing, and I do have a problem with that because right now there are many of us who do have the virus and don't know it. Many of us do not have symptoms. Many people are going back to work or at work because their bosses, such as people who work in hospitals, doctors, nurses, they have them working knowing that they are positive, but because they do not show symptoms, they're allowing them to work or expecting them to work. But if they show signs of COVID-19, then you can go on home. That is foolish. That is the most foolish and detrimental thing you can do, is allow staff members in a hospital, nursing home facility, assisted living, any job. Let me make that clear. Any job. I don't care if it's Walmart or it's the hospital. If a worker tests positive for COVID-19, he or she should be sent home, Johnny on the spot. And they should be given a test, and you all need to find and make a way that they get a test so they can know the status of the situation and they can be monitored. This self-quarantine business ain't working. It has not been working. Some have been fortunate to survive at home and get over their symptoms. Others have taken violently ill, gone on respirators, ventilators, whichsoever. Some have lived, some have died. This virus is a roll of the dice. You are just rolling the dice to see if you catch it, and you are rolling the dice to see if you will survive it. And I do not believe we need to be walking around here without tests. And we also don't know the odds of getting it again. I was watching Mr. Trump today talk about the odds of you getting it. You really don't know, as he states, because it's a new virus. There's a chance that you could get the virus, overcome the virus, and don't recatch the virus maybe a year from now, maybe never. But that's the gist of the story. Who's to say? Because if you don't have people who know about the virus, and how could we? It is new. Then you're taking a chance. And I know people have to go back to work at some point. We know this. But I believe there need to be more tests. And the fact that I was watching a doctor or a medical official of an institute state it is an issue of not having enough swabs. I'm thinking to myself, please tell me no. That this country's on shutdown because America can't find enough cotton swabs. Well, hell, maybe we need to go call China. They make everything else over there. Maybe we should go call them and ask them, hey, do you have some cotton swabs we can use so we can test our citizens and get them well and get them back working? The tests are needed. We cannot have people just walking around, not knowing if they are sick, hoping that they don't get sick, going to the hospital when they do get sick, to only be sent back home because they are sick, then wait to see if they're going to get more sick, to then only go back to the hospital to see how they fare and pray they don't end up on a ventilator. And also pray the hospital has a ventilator. Yeah, I said it. Mr. Trump, I don't know what your problem is and your malfunction because you have seemed to have a problem since you got up in that White House. But enough of the shenanigans, enough of the playing stupid and dumb and downplaying this virus and acting like 100,000 people dead ain't nothing, because it is something. It's something to the dead, and it's something to the people left behind to mourn the dead. And it's something called fear for those of us who are still breathing and kicking and worried about contracting this disease. I think that needs to be the motivation right now. Focus on getting enough tests that can be administered by our local health departments, clinics, doctor's offices, Walgreens, Walmart, I don't care. And we get the test, and then we follow suit thereafter. And there's a possibility, and this is a possibility, that once we have tested, some of us will test positive, and then we will need to go to the hospital and see. I think that that's where the fear comes in. They know that will be many of us sickly, and we will have to go, and there won't be enough staff to help us. There will not be enough beds to keep us there to make sure we are monitored and get what we need. And we also know that there is no cure, no vaccination. But at least they have some drugs in that hospital that could help the process to keep us alive. And I think that's what the fear is. They know that once people test positive, they will immediately want to go to the hospital. And it's once again, toss up of getting sent back home. But if you go back, worse, they have to keep you there. Something needs to be done. And I know a lot of people in the medical profession have walked off their jobs. They have quit. Nurses have quit. So staff is slow. You have staff that are sick, tested positive, and have decided to go on and leave, stay home because they want to live. They have children. They have families. And I understand that. But we also have those who are sick and afflicted, ill and dying in the hospital, and they need immediate care. So that is also a toss-up, a roll of the dice, 50-50 chance. Will you get aid when you get to the hospital? Will you have a bed if you take violently ill? And will there be staff there to help you while you are ill? We did not prepare for this. Our government did not prepare. They weren't expecting it. And although there are many stories going around of people who have talked about it, Mr. Obama talked about it a few years ago. Mr. Bill Gates have talked about it. So it was always on the table. It was always in the air. But no one in Washington thought about a pandemic, an odorless virus floating around. You can't see, you can't hear it, you can't smell it. But it is here. And the sick part is there's a chance it will stay longer than we expect it to. People will get reinfected, and another one will come and bring the bang, sure enough. And will our country be able to stand up to the occasion if another virus or this virus gets jiggy and more people die? This is a very sad day in America, and something needs to be done. And I don't know about opening up this country, May, June. I know we have to go back, but the risk is people going back to work and people still afflicted with this, still passing this, and we don't get any further than we did or are right now. And as I hear on the news, Japan has a jump off. So how's that going to work? China's down, Japan's up, Europe's still on, America's still on, but Mr. Trump wants the country back up and running the end of April. Just get us the damn test already. Let us see what we have, and then get the appropriate people together for a worst case scenario for those who do show up positive, and get them the proper medical help so they can get rid of the disease quickly to preserve life, and then get the country back up and running. Like, share, subscribe. Drop your comments below. Thanks for joining me. Please wash your hands. Please wear your mask and gloves when you go out in public. And God bless America. Thanks again. And this is Everyday Shenanigans.